This is ZestifyUp. We are not here just to motivate you, as motivation alone does not last. We are here to transform you and to amplify your potential.
Let me tell you something that you already know deep inside of yourself.
There is a version of you that already knows the world doesn't work the way you were taught.
You felt it the first time someone lied to your face and smiled while doing it.
You felt it when the hardest working person you knew got passed over.
You felt it every time you played by the rules and still ended up losing. You felt it, but you buried it.
Because the alternative, actually accepting what the world is terrifying. Let me tell you of someone. Over 500 years ago, a man sat alone in a small house. He had just been tortured, imprisoned, exiled from the city he spent his entire career serving.
The people he had given everything to had stripped him of everything in return.
And in that silence, instead of becoming bitter, he became something far more dangerous.
He became honest.
What he wrote next would get him banned by the Pope, condemned as the work of the devil, and quietly read by every powerful person who ever lived.
His name was Niccolò Machiavelli, and what he understood about human nature, about power, about reality, about the gap between how we wish the world worked and how it actually does, is something most people still refuse to accept.
Not because it's wrong.
Because it's right.
Let's talk about something that happens to almost everyone.
You grow up being told that if you're good, truly, genuinely good, the world will reward you for it.
Be honest, be kind, be loyal, work hard, don't cut corners, do the right thing even when no one is watching.
And for a while, this belief feels true, or at least possible.
Then life starts to show you things.
You watch someone who lied their way to the top actually reach the top.
You watch loyalty go unrewarded.
You watch people get used and discarded by the very systems they dedicated themselves to. You watch kindness get mistaken for weakness again and again and again.
And here is where most people make a fatal error.
They see all of this. They feel the weight of it pressing against their chest. And then they do one of two things.
They either decide the world is corrupt and they are pure, and they spend the rest of their lives being slowly crushed by a reality they refuse to engage with.
Or they go to the other extreme.
They decide that nothing matters, that everyone is a snake, that the only way to survive is to become something cold and hollow.
Both paths destroy you. Machiavelli, who had every reason to choose bitterness, chose something else.
He chose clarity. Here is what clarity looks like.
Clarity is not cynicism.
Cynicism is still an emotion. It still fogs your thinking, still makes decisions for you, still keeps you reactive instead of strategic.
Clarity is simply seeing things as they are.
Not as you want them to be.
Not as you were told they should be.
As they are.
And what Machiavelli saw, with devastating accuracy, is that the world contains two forces pulling against each other constantly. The first is what you can control. Your preparation, your judgment, your adaptability, your courage.
Call it your inner power.
The second is what you cannot control. Circumstance, timing, other people's choices, the random violence of events colliding in ways you never saw coming.
Most people either pretend the second force doesn't exist and get blindsided constantly, or they become so paralyzed by it that they stop trying to exercise the first force at all.
The answer, and Machiavelli's answer, is to build.
He used the image of a river.
A river that floods every season, wiping out villages, killing people, swallowing everything they built.
You can't stop the river.
But you can build the banks.
You can build the levees.
You can prepare so that when the flood comes, and it will come, you are not destroyed by it.
Your life right now is a set of banks, either built or unbuilt.
How prepared are you for what's coming?
Now here is where this gets deeply personal.
And I want you to sit with this.
There is something in you, something beneath the polished version of yourself you present to the world, that already knows what needs to happen.
You know which relationship is draining you.
You know which habit is holding you back.
You know what you need to start and what you need to stop.
You know.
But knowing and doing are separated by one thing.
And that one thing is not motivation.
It is not inspiration.
It is not even discipline in the way most people talk about it.
It is the willingness to see yourself clearly.
Machiavelli believed that within every person lives something animal.
Something that wants, that craves, that will pursue desire with a rawness that polite society trains you to suppress.
He wasn't saying unleash it.
He was saying, stop pretending it doesn't exist.
Because the version of you that denies that hunger is the same version that never builds anything real.
That version is too comfortable, too managed, too careful to ever move.
The lion scares what needs to be scared.
The fox avoids what needs to be avoided.
But neither animal pretends it is something other than what it is.
What are you pretending not to be? Let's talk about fear for a moment.
Not the fear of failure.
Not the fear of judgment.
I want to talk about the fear of being truly seen. As someone who wants more, who refuses to settle, who is willing to do what most people won't do to get what most people will never have.
That fear is the cage.
Because here's what nobody tells you about people who achieve something significant.
They are not fearless.
They are not immune to doubt.
They do not have some genetic advantage that allows them to shrug off difficulty.
What they have is a relationship with reality that most people never develop.
They stopped needing the world to be fair.
They stopped waiting for recognition before working.
They stopped confusing loyalty with self-destruction.
And they learned, slowly, painfully, through loss and failure and everything going wrong in the way only real life can arrange, that the gap between who they were and who they needed to become was not a curse. It was the work.
There's a version of this that most people miss entirely.
Machiavelli's most dangerous idea was not about rulers.
It was not even about power in the political sense.
It was this.
The way you think the world should be is not a strategy.
It is a liability.
Not because goodness is wrong.
Not because ethics don't matter.
But because the person who walks through a complicated world armed only with the way things ought to be will be outmaneuvered, again and again, by people who have accepted the way things are.
This doesn't make those people smarter.
It doesn't make them better.
It makes them more prepared.
And preparation, not talent, not luck, not even intelligence, is what separates people who build lives they're proud of from people who spend their lives wondering why it never worked out.
So the question is not whether you are a good person.
The question is whether you are a prepared one. Here's what we want you to take from this.
Not ruthlessness.
Not manipulation.
Not any of the cheap, hollow imitations of power that desperate people reach for when they feel out of control.
What I want you to take is this.
The world will not reshape itself to fit your ideals.
But you can reshape yourself to navigate the world as it is, while still being the person you choose to be.
That is the tension.
And it doesn't resolve.
You have to hold it.
Be honest when honesty builds something.
Be strategic when strategy protects something.
Be adaptable when circumstances change, because they will change.
They always do.
But never lose the thread back to why you're doing any of this in the first place. Power without purpose is just exhaustion with a better excuse. The people who last, the ones who actually build something, they combine clarity about the world with clarity about themselves. They know the game and they know their reason for playing it. That combination is rare, but you're watching this video, which means you're already asking the questions that most people are too comfortable to ask.
Machiavelli never got what he wanted.
He theorized about power and never wielded it.
He understood human nature with uncommon precision and still ended up alone, watching his career crumble from the outside.
There is something deeply human in that.
Understanding the rules of the game is not the same as winning it.
But I think Machiavelli's real legacy, the one worth carrying with you, is this single, unflinching confrontation with reality.
He looked at the world as it was.
Uncomfortable, contradictory, often unjust.
And instead of flinching, he studied it.
That is the discipline that matters most.
Not the discipline of waking up early. Not the discipline of cold showers or rigid routines.
The discipline of seeing clearly, thinking honestly and acting accordingly, even when every comfortable instinct in you wants to look away.
That discipline changes everything.
And it starts not with what you do next.
It starts with what you're finally willing to admit to yourself right now.